I am Halima Qureshi and I am a consultant clinical psychologist. I am a CBT practitioner and NLP practitioner as well. Today we are going to discuss the most common psychological conditions which are most prevalent in our community and how you are going to identify those symptoms in your everyday life, as well as what are the causes which are causing them, and you are going to identify them on your own. So what you have to do is just to watch that video and you are going to know about these most prevalent causes. First condition or the psychological disorder we are going to discuss is the depression. Depression, which you may know, is most common, and the term itself is sometimes used, misused, overused in our community, in our society. Sometimes the difference is very hard to maintain and people are unable to identify what is anxiety and what is depression. Sometimes they used to say when they are experiencing the anxiety symptom, they used to report them as a depressive symptoms, and sometimes when they are experiencing the depressive symptoms, they used to report them as an anxiety symptom. So this is a very much common misconception which you are going to clarify for your own self. We are talking about depression. In depression, there are few these conditions you just noticed. That first is that lethargy, the lack of energy. If you see someone that they are getting hard time getting out of their bed, doing their everyday tasks which were very much easy for them weeks before or some time before, and you just see them struggling with their everyday routine, with everyday maintaining their own personal hygiene, doing their everyday task or something like that, and you also find them to be having some problems in their focus, in their concentration, in their decision making, and their sleep is disturbed, their appetite is disturbed. So some of those symptoms will be overlapped with some of other conditions, but as depression is the most prevalent, so sometimes it is the most common case that when the person is experiencing these sort of symptoms, they are going to meet that sort of condition. So you can help them out, so they can get them screened by a professional and they can seek help as early as possible. Apart from these conditions which we have discussed, the person could also be experiencing depressed mood, VP, or crying spells, we can say, sometimes suicidal tendencies, sometimes self-harm tendencies, and sometimes the suicidal intentions, and they can go forth and they can be more deadly, more dangerous, and they can end up in suicide as well. The second most common condition of the psychological disorder we can talk about is anxiety. And anxiety is what everyone used to experience, but that does not meet the criteria of a disorder. What are the symptoms for anxiety is the concern over apprehension, or we can say over concern, tension, stress, or we can say that the person is having sweaty feeling, trembling, shaky, or these are all those conditions in which the person used to experience overly anxiety, worriness, tension, the need for urgency. All these comes under the heading or under the umbrella of anxiety conditions or anxiety symptoms. So when a person is experiencing, or you see someone around you who is getting into that trouble every day in every way, and every task is just a hassle for them, just a sort of urgency for them, then you can let them know that they are going through some condition which can be fixed, which can be totally fixed, and which can be healed and cured. For their peace of mind and for their well-being, you can suggest it to them. And if you are experiencing these symptoms, then you can get help yourself too before it gets more worse, because it is a cycle which just goes on and on and on, and it just goes out of hand sometimes. So it is better that to seek help beforehand, or just to try some of the self-help remedy before it is getting worse, because once it is reaching that point where a person can't help themselves by themselves, so before getting there, you can try self-help. And if you see that someone is in the need, then you can always help them or support them to seek psychological help. So now we are going to summarize these two first, and then we are going to move forward towards other, as these two are most commonly mislabeled and exchanged their names somehow. So first, depression is about the sad moods, everything is low, everything is down, while anxiety is something like urgency, and it is something really different from the sad mood or being down. It is some sort of tension, excessive worry, and racing thoughts, heart pounding, sweating, trembling, shaking, all those sort of conditions which are called anxiety in the anxiety symptoms, and sometimes labeled as anxiety under the umbrella of anxiety disorder. And panic, conditions are really different. In the anxiety disorder, they lie under the anxiety disorder umbrella, but the panic disorder or the panic conditions are very much different from the general anxiety. Or we can say that anxiety could be about other things as well, like the person could have a health anxiety only if they are concerned about their health or somatic symptoms. The other anxieties could be related to some sort of phobia which a person is having about anything, which is they are holding some irrational fear towards that thing. So that is anxiety, and depression is all down. Now we are going to talk about bipolar disorder, which is also used to term under the mood disorder, but now it is separately identified because there are a number of other things which needs to be tackled around this thing. So bipolar, as its name says, there are two poles. It is the roller coaster of emotions. Sometimes a person is at one pole and sometimes they are at the right at a different pole. Rarely they experience the usual or the borderline phase of that condition or that mood, because one time they are overly excited, overly talkative, with over energy, excitement, rush of adrenaline, we can say, or they are going on impulsivity and everything irrationally, or their energy level is so high that they are leaving one thing, starting another thing, and the race of thoughts and everything is too much in action in their manic mode, we can say, in the manic state, we can say. And the other mode is that of the depressive mode. The other pole of that condition is the depressive. One day they are totally depressive and the other day they could be manic. So this is how the mood swings used to be. So we can say that it is a roller coaster of emotions. One time they are overly sad and even being suicidal, and some at other time they are in their exaggerated mood as well. The second last condition which we are going to talk about is OCD, obsessive-compulsive disorder. You must have heard, you must have seen some sort of movies around that topic, because this is some sort of condition in which people used to be, and you might have seen someone around you or someone you might have noticed that they used to do, they might be overly concerned about one specific thing, or they are being overly checking something, they are overly doing something. For example, if they are checking the locks again and again, if they are closing that water taps and they are checking the taps again and again, if they are washing their hands, they are washing them again and again. So there are sometimes the fear of contamination. Sometimes they repeatedly check to make sure if something has been done. Sometimes they close the windows and then check them again and again, and it is very much time taking. It is not some sort of usual sort of repetition, but it is that they just get exhausted by checking those things, and they just spend most of their day, most time of their days onto that particular ritual or that particular task they used to be doing. Now we are going to discuss PTSD, that is post-traumatic stress disorder, and that is a very much important to discuss, that trauma is not something that we all of us and most of us say that trauma is something which is happening to some specific people. But trauma, I can say when I used to see it in my clients and when I used to see in the clinical population, that trauma is something which is the most common thing, even though they are not experiencing PTSD, but they have gone through some sort of trauma, and traumas are of different kinds and different types. We are going to discuss them in a separate video, because that is another very much in-depth topic which needs to be discussed and which must be reached to the common people, and they must know that what trauma is. Talking about specifically about PTSD, that PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder in which the memories, events, traumas left a very deep scar in the person's memory, and they are re-experiencing or reliving those times in the form of flashbacks, disturbing dreams, images, thoughts in some other ways, and their emotions are as much charged as they were when they first experienced it. So sometimes we can't say that time heals everything. Last condition I am going to discuss is the eating disorder. It is also very much common, and mostly it is happening in the teenage and the young adults as well. The eating disorder is some sort of condition in which you might not notice around, because some people used to suffer with it alone. by keeping it to themselves, and sometimes it used to be disclosed to other around them. So eating disorder is not always about just food, overeating it, or puking it, or using purging to get rid of that food. It is not only about food, but it is also mostly about the self-image and the self-control of the person. Now, concluding with this video and with this topic, I hope that you must have gained some of the basic knowledge regarding these conditions. And if we talk about the causes of these, then most of these conditions are related to the genetics, and rest of them are related to the traumas, adverse childhood conditions, and a lot of other stresses, some sort of accidental injuries, some sort of those conditions. But majorly the environmental conditions are very much prevalent, most importantly in the cases of anxiety, depression, PTSD. So in these cases, environmental stresses and adverse childhood experiences, especially in PTSD, are most prevalent. So we are going to discuss them in detail, that how to get rid of these causes, and how you as a parent as well can help with your children to overcome and not to create such sort of traumas for your own kids, so they don't get into those conditions later in their adulthood. Thank you so much for being with us. Inshallah, see you in the next video.